SEC launches investigation probe on WIF Vegas Sphere fundraise.
Oh wow. I don't recall coming across this. I might have to say.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of No Cap. This is episode 3. Today joining us is a
Oh
very
wow.
close friend of mine, Amir. Amir,
Yeah.
tell us about yourself.
Oh well. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here on this nice Friday afternoon. My name is Amir. I'm a partner at Hypersphere. Been in the crypto space professionally now since 2019. So the moment I got out of school, fell down the rabbit hole all the way back in 2016, 2017. After graduating, started off at Consensus, where I was on the solutions team there. So started on the consulting side of this industry. It was the middle of two bear markets ago. So at the time, it was there was a huge focus on figuring out what are we actually solving for. What are some use cases that might make sense for the solution that we were, I guess, all developing with the blockchain. And Also at the time, there was a huge push for enterprise blockchain solutions. There was this huge period where people were transitioning away from ICOs to SDOs, real estate tokenization. These were the themes at the time. But yeah, spent some time over at Consensus shortly after, joined the Tezos ecosystem around March, April of 2020, right after the massive crash then. Was doing some venture work for the Tezos Foundation. So the way in which the Tezos ecosystem was structured was at the time a three-legged stool. So you had the foundation in Switzerland, which is effectively the ecosystem's treasury. You had Nomadic Labs in Paris, which was building out the core protocol. And then you had TQ Tezos, which was co-founded actually by Jacob as well. Jacob Arlick, who's now at Celestia. And we were effectively the adoption arm of the Tezos ecosystem. So through there, we were also doing some venture work for the Tezos Foundation. Went really well. Obviously, mandate slightly different from what you see in traditional venture. Not necessarily optimizing for returns, but rather how do we actually galvanize builders and users to join this emerging L1. So was there for about a year and a half. Eventually met the guys over at the Web3 Foundation, who at the time had just spun out a venture fund, Hypersphere. First venture vehicle was very much a Dotsama's ecosystem fund. That was a $25 million seed stage fund. Joined the team sort of at the end of the deployment period for the first fund, at the start of the second fund, which was a $16 million seed stage fund. And focus here is actually a lot broader rather than just the build out Polkadot and Kusama. It became more of a chain agnostic vehicle. So joined back in June of 21, been here until I guess now, August of 24, so leading most of our venture work. And we also just launched a liquid fund about officially 3 weeks ago, but it's been operating as stealth for about I think 3 or 4 months now.
So you got into crypto in like 2017?
Yeah.
Or 2016. Why? Like, what about crypto spoke to you?
What about crypto spoke to me? So as far as the exact moment where my interest was peaked, I was taking course. I went to Boston College. All freshmen at the business school at CSOM are required to take a course called Computers and Management. There was a 5-minute lecture at the time on the topic of blockchain and specifically Bitcoin. And mind you, in 2015, 2016, narratives were very different than what we're seeing in 2024. At the time, the professor was basically just talking about how Bitcoin was used to fund illicit activities on Silk Road. And that was more or less the end of the conversation. That was enough for me to realize there was definitely much more to learn. I feel like you're being intellectually dishonest to think that the only use case for what felt like a breakthrough technology was to buy and sell drugs and fake IDs and what have you on the dark web. So went back to my dorm room, was a responsible student, decided to do my own diligence. Started just learning about the general ethos of decentralization, distributed systems, and sort of this mission of trying to disintermediate all of these heavily intermediated industries. And that spoke to me. I just saw a lot of industries in which something like this could be a silver bullet, addressing a lot of the opacity, a lot of the corruption, be it in traditional finance, politics, so on and so forth, consumer, um, social media, what have you. And then from there, it was just, again, ended up meeting a few like-minded students within Boston College as well as in the broader Boston area. And then kind of just fell in love after that.
Awesome. So you're a VC,
Yes, I am.
which is cool, I guess. It's been a wild week. I think like maybe a month ago, Jason from Tangent and Andrew from Mechanism Capital came out and basically said like markets are overpriced. It's time. Like then they basically went short, right? We had a little shock in the system over the weekend, and yeah, like ETH is at 2,300 now, which is like not great. Big picture though, I mean, really interested to kind of chat about the implications, venture landscape, how you feel. I mean, how all three of us feel like the market's going to be evolving over the next few months. Tiago, what are your thoughts on what's happened this week?
One thing that I do believe that I have already spoken with you, Namik, was pretty much about the PvP landscape that we see right now on the markets and why it doesn't feel exactly like a bull market. Right now, after Kobe was tweeting all of that and the Telegram messages going around, it does feel like more people are talking about it. But overall, I do see that, for example, in the VC landscape, most of the deals that I've been doing, it's pretty much VCs trying to take money from each other. It doesn't look like there's a lot of retail participants, or I mean, we all see the performance of the tokens that actually get released. A lot of the price action is captured in private markets, so it definitely does feel like VCs are trying to grab a piece of the pie, and the pie is not getting larger. So the only way for you to grab a piece of the pie is by taking the pieces that are from other people of the current pie. Um, Another way that you can put it is, for example, compared to the last cycles, you don't see any wag me conversation happening on crypto Twitter. It doesn't feel definitely like people are winning, everybody's winning. And I mean, before, for example, if you were trading on the last cycle, you were mad that your coins weren't pumping as the other, and that was the problem that you had. I cannot believe that I bought a coin that only 2x'd within 1 week, where I could have bought the other coin that 5x'd. And of course, basically, also by running Three Sigma, we also see that basically for each one company that is a success, we see in the market that basically three other companies died. And of course, I mean, on Twitter, you always just see the success stories. Nobody's bragging about how their company is basically not being able to raise more funds and they'll have to close doors. But from us, also like from the consulting perspective, I mean, we have contact with pretty much every company in the space in DeFi ecosystems, etc. We definitely see their pain points. We see which ones are more like conserving capital, which ones are trying to expand and being more aggressive with different engineering campaigns or audits, economic models, etc. And it's definitely really shaky out there. So I would say that right now we're not currently in what is considered a thriving bull market. The industry is growing. I basically have the opinion that right now we're seeing people throw chips at the table. The table is not getting larger. Some people win, some people lose. But I mean, it's a natural consequence of people playing poker at the same table. I do believe that the bull market is still to come, and it will be a big one. It doesn't look like retail learned anything else. Maybe the SEC has a point in trying to protect these retail investors into buying the tokens that our industry creates. But yeah, from I mean their behavior, you see pump fun, which is basically the thing that SEC would probably hate the most after ICOs. It's doing the most, like it's doing insane revenue, and yeah, it doesn't look like retail has changed a little bit. Maybe that'll be a catalyst, and the bull market kicks in again.
It's interesting. You were like, VCs are taking money away from each other. And it's very PvP in private markets as well. I mean, I definitely see that. But I'm curious if you were to look at like network ownership targets from last cycle to this cycle, are there more funds that are demanding like a percentage of the network? I don't know. What do you see?
I think teams are a little more cognizant of that now, maybe less so in 2021. Um, Ideally, when I chat with portfolio company founders, I mean, best practice is to at least reserve a majority or like the majority of the network for the community or for community purposes. Insiders shouldn't be owning anything more than say like 40% of the entire network. Otherwise, that just kind of Chris Berners has a really good piece on this titled "The Original Sin," and it's the general idea of like the value of the network itself is only as valuable as the number of people who are actually participating in that network. So would you rather own 10% of something that it ends up being worth $10 billion, or would you rather own 80% of something that is worth, say, 300 million?
So yeah, that makes sense, and I think that's like I had a different question almost, right? So what you're describing is like what percentage of network should be owned by insiders, and you think people are being more cognizant about not selling, like not having insiders own too much this cycle as
Yeah.
opposed to last cycle. I'd love to touch on that, but before that, like I'm curious when you look at the breakdown of, let's say I'm going to sell like 10% of my company in this round, the makeup of DO's investors. Is it usually going to be? I mean, oftentimes there's going to be a lead that takes like the lion's share,
Yeah.
and there's a distribution of other angels and like a couple follow-on funds. But that is what I see as PvP. If you think that the majority of price discovery is going to happen in like secondary market, I mean, pardon me, in private rounds, private markets, then your competitor is the other VC who wants to be in that round, and you have two options, right? You share it, or you take more. So, I mean, I think you made 2 points there, Amir, right? You were more so discussing like what percentage of the network is going to be owned by insiders, and how people are more cognizant about that number needing to be less than they used to be. I'd love to touch on this as well because I think that's really interesting. But my initial question was more so on what Tiago said, right? Which is like VCs are being more PvP, and if VCs are being PvP, that means that if price discovery is happening in private markets, they need to have as much network ownership in the earliest round possible. So let's say you do like a 10% of your round is sold in the round, and how much of that will go to one VC as opposed to others? Do you see that people are being more cognizant of like round distribution to have multiple VCs playing, or has that not really changed from last cycle?
Really hasn't. I mean, at the end of the day, like the VC landscape has always been more or less like PvP. They are your competitors. The same way
Yeah.
that if you're an operator of an emerging L1 or L2, you can certainly have good relationships with other founders, but and you can always preach about sort of like infinite sum games, but there is a world in which you guys are competing for the same exact pie. And with that being the case, unless you see legitimate value in bringing on multiple partners, folks will probably be as incentivized as possible to capture as much of a project, especially ones that are high profile, just needle in a haystack to come by. So I think that really hasn't changed. It's definitely accelerated though in a bull market, especially when folks are deploying even more. Um, and like if you look even like further back, there's just so much venture glut from like 2020 that's spilling into 2024. Folks are, at least GPs, etc. They're, again, not to, we can maybe even cut this out because I'm not trying to get like canceled by the VC community, but people are making their money off of deploying the money into actual legitimate projects. Like they want to collect their 2%. People who raise mega funds, they raise $3, $4, $5 million funds. For them, they just want to be able to, again, deploy the money to raise their next vehicle. That's the business model, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to cut that out. That's just a fact. But
So
so that's the second part then, right? Which was percentage of the network that goes to insiders. Interesting enough for me, I feel like has gotten worse. Maybe I just don't know what happens, right? But back in like 2020, 2021, I look at all these different white papers and like the token distributions would be like, you know, 20, 30% going to insiders.
mhm.
Now I'm regularly seeing 49% to insiders, which is a crazy statement. Like that does not make sense to me. What are your thoughts, Tiago? What have you seen?
Basically, like when you see this like 49% going to insiders, um, they were always there, even in 2020 and 2021, and even in previous cycles. But just like these white papers put more emphasis in trying to mask how it wasn't supposed to be insiders. But I mean, that was at the time where all the memes circulated, was where it was like CZ with all the different mustaches, SBF with all the different mustaches. But everybody knew that it was SBF basically like owning all the supply anyway. So I just think that basically maybe the market taught people into basically being more transparent about it. but it doesn't look like things have changed that much. I think maybe there were even like projects back in the time where, because they weren't transparent, it wasn't just 49% of the supply that was owned by insiders. There were a lot of L1s that did like crazy pre-mining campaigns, like there were alt L1s that came out, and I actually remember one that I'm not gonna name, but like they had 100 years of validators rewards that were pre-mined for the teams, and they published this nowhere. You had to basically check the chain, and then you would figure out that these guys, had pre-mined 100 years of validator rewards, and there was no mention about it on the white paper. You could not find this anywhere. So basically, the only way that you could find it would see like the huge amount of wallets that they had for the pre-mine that they gave out basically in the early blocks of the genesis of the blockchain itself. So I think that basically people started being fully transparent and not going over the 49% line. Maybe that was what the market taught them, because if you're not fully transparent, well, people will probably assume that you own 85% of the supply or something. So might as well be transparent and just take 49.
So not to beat a dead horse here, since it was probably the topic of the month, maybe 1 or 2 months ago. But if you were today trying to scope out the best possible TGE in terms of distribution, um, in terms of tokenomics, etc., how would you go about that?
So, what's the question? Like, what's the best TG possible?
What's the best TGE possible in terms of network distribution, um, just like vesting? What should teams be paying attention to going forward where you kind of avoid what the current meta is, which is all these are low float, high FTP tokens. There's massive overhang. I think this month alone, we probably have like $300 or $400 million that are just being unlocked across a number of these VC coins. What are some ways of mitigating this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like nothing, like, there's no correct answer. I think a lot of things don't work, right? Off the bat, like farming users for years and then giving all like these users this airdrop that then they are incentivized to sell, even if it's to recoup their initial investment of mining this thing. Not great, right? And we saw that of ZK. A lot of people selling day one, even though they did like a really, really large job. I think they were like, everyone is real. They were super excited to be giving it all to real users, and then a lot of people sold. And layer zero spent a super long time trying to get rid of all of the bots, and it's still coin did not do super well at first, right? And I think like one part of that is like airdrops are not the best model. I think in a lot of ways there are good things about ICOs in which everyone is participating wants to actually hold the coin as opposed to sell the coin, right? Like they're actually they are part of this vision and mission, which I think is interesting. And it's hard to see like another version of that, right? Like I'm sure Coinlist will say they're the solution to this, but it's all accredited investors. And then Echo is another solution for this as well.
Coinlist just did the Ensu auction, right?
I understand the point people make about ICOs, but I also find that people romanticize ICOs quite a bit. Everyone looks back and like, oh, the glory days. But as someone who was also a participant in a number of ICOs, scams were everywhere.
Yeah.
It was no different than what you're seeing even right now on like obviously I think Pumped Out Fun is more of a like a it's ironic because like the frequency of rugs there kind of mirrors what you were seeing back in like 2017 2018, albeit not as I guess not as frequently, just because it's
Just
so
rolling.
the
Yeah.
lift of launching a token on Pump.Fun is a matter of several clicks. But I can name like 50, 60 situations where I was like on ICO drops like many other people in like 2017 2018. I think one of the names like Autonomy was maybe a name that rugged their investors at one point. So again, it's not like sure as far as like network distribution, um, addressing this idea of like unrealized gains that are all happening on the private market. You're able to create a better floor because now the public is able to create that support. No one's necessarily incentivized to drop to just dump something because it's no longer just free money. But I think the mechanics of an ICO also weren't perfect,
Yeah, of course.
and I feel like
Yeah.
most people don't like to. No one has like truly addressed the limitations of how ICOs were conducted, be it like 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah. You know what? I do like I think like one solution is just less price discovery in private markets, right? You don't need to raise all of these rounds and raise all of this money. Another option is, I think like I like Athena's airdrop quite a lot. I mean, yeah, the coin is like disregarding price action, right? They went live. They spent like a few months doing a campaign, and then they went live with the token and decentralized the network pretty quickly,
Yeah,
which I thought was like pretty awesome. Like it wasn't just like a multi-year farm of users with a never-ending supply of points. If anyone has done points well in recent history, I would say it was Athena.
yeah. No, I would say definitely Athena was one of
Come
the
closer.
better TGEs of this past year. On the topic though of not having to raise so much money, I push back on that, and I think it was
The
Kobe.
pre-seed investor pushes back on
No, no,
that.
okay, no, no. This is me taking my VC hat off and me just like speaking as a market participant or a spectator rather. But if you look at, I want to say it was Kobe who made this point, but everything is relative to where the market is today. People again romanticize the fact that like Solana launched at an X
Yeah.
like at 50, like you were able to buy Sol on the public market for 50 cents. You also have to be mindful of the fact that when Sol launched, I think ETH was like $360. You also have to be mindful of the fact that competition in 2024 is a lot more than what we were seeing 4 years prior. For you to actually have a meaningful sort of impact, position, etc., in the space, you need to have a war chest to go along with that. I think a lot of people are also cognizant of that today because we're starting to realize it's not just the tech that's required. Like tech narrative, like distribution is a part that a lot of people are realizing just now is probably arguably the most important because your tech can be mid. It's okay if it's mid as long as you're able to touch the most people possible. And I think a lot of folks are only now coming to realize that that's something they definitely under index for early on. Those that have the massive war chest can maybe find a path to 1 million monthly active users, 5 million monthly active users. But those that may have thought, oh, we don't have to raise so much venture funding, they won't be able to have that kind of flexibility going forward. So again, I think everything you have to consider your current environment, current market dynamics, etc., of whether it makes sense to raise a lot of money or not. There has to be uh, like a legitimate reason for raising that much money. I think a lot of folks just raise hundreds of millions of dollars and don't really know what to do with it. But I definitely think that uh, having a war chest to begin with, especially as we enter this next phase of okay, how do we bring the next quote unquote like the meme of the next billion users? How do we bring them on chain? Um, if you're not like Ton, Coinbase, or Binance, you're gonna have quite a bit of trouble.
Totally agree with you. In the sense that, for example, I've had this conversation with Namik as well. If you look at CoinGecko right now, what the market is valuing is definitely war chests and distribution. These are the common characteristics of all the coins that basically did not perform so bad, so poorly, and all the coins that outperformed. Some examples are, for example, Ton and even Starkware. I mean, they probably have the lowest amount of daily users of all the out of all the Aldous. Like their FTV is still pretty high compared to all the other ones. So basically, when you look at the different characteristics and basically the different assets and metrics, it's definitely war chests and distribution. Before I finish my point here, I just want to say, Namik, when you were talking about basically the airdrops and ICOs, etc., I think the market structure was so different that it's very hard to draw like a comparison to right now, because at the time there were no products and basically you did not need to fight for customer acquisition, and therefore you did not need the necessary evil, which are points and airdrops, because without points and airdrops, doing customer acquisition in a landscape where there's already a lot of live products is extremely hard, or I mean pretty much impossible. I don't remember any application that like except like Pump Fun that didn't have like a huge points campaign or a huge airdrop campaign, liquidity mining campaign, and was actually successful in attracting volume users, liquidity. So like yeah, the market structure was so different, and of course like an airdrop and points farming affect then token distribution. But I think like even if you had like ICOs right now today, the results would be completely different from the ICOs that you had before in the past. Like you wouldn't be able to like, you could have a healthier like this a healthier token distribution, but maybe you wouldn't be able to do so well on customer acquisition, and so maybe like the price would stabilize at a healthy point, but then you would be basically like left out of opportunities on how to actually grow and acquire and get, you know, the flywheel of acquisition of people into the product. But I mean, of course, of course, we would only know if ICOs were live.
When it comes to airdrops, right, and airdrops farming, yes, it's a way to get users, but those aren't real users, right? That's not actual PMF. And you're seeing this across the board. I remember a few years ago, Amir and I co-wrote this paper that was looking at like, you know, bridge activity between different chains, and you'll see it would align one to one with any kind of like liquidity incentivization platform. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
Liquidity mining program.
yeah, one of those, or like some sort of just in general, you know, you're getting incentivized for activity and liquidity, right? Some campaign. And obviously, every single time afterwards, it goes right back to zero. And realistically speaking, that's just not sustainable. If you're raising hundreds of millions of dollars with a plan of like, you know, having a points program so you can justify raising even more money, and then the end of the day, you still have no users. And when you look at this market, that's exactly what's happened with like most teams that did the airdrop scheme.
Yes, but for you to do user retention, you need to start with customer acquisition, and you cannot do any meaningful customer acquisition without the points programs. And actually raising another round to try to pivot towards customer retention and not just acquisition can make sense from a business perspective, and that's part of the reason why the market values so much the war chests, because these protocols prove that they could do acquisition, and now they have a war chest to try different strategies on basically retention. Do they work? Well, if they work, the market wouldn't value so much war chests. It's basically the market saying, "I think you're gonna fuck up 100 times, but I hope that the 101st is the one that's gonna make you like king." But yeah, like I totally agree.
Yeah, let's see how it plays out. Let's see how it plays out.
As someone who's building out an ecosystem right now, how are you thinking about at least the distribution element of it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like for us, distribution is key. But then the question is, are you trying to tackle and get existing users within the Ethereum, or like, you know, even in the crypto ecosystem, or are you looking for net new users? And our strategy is very much like we want apps that have never existed before, and we can actually do that because, you know, we've made like very interesting design choices. And yeah, we're hyper indexing on consumer applications, which most users don't need to know how to use crypto whatsoever to do so. So yeah, like we definitely don't have the distribution angle that Coinbase has with Base, or Binance with BSC, or Telegram with Ton. But those are mostly like existing users in the crypto ecosystem, and you're creating a nicer mechanism through which they can interact with your chain, right? I'm looking for net new users who have never touched crypto, but you can now play with peer-to-peer and crypto economic mechanisms without any of the performance degradation associated with crypto. So I think it's just different markets.
Internally, do
Yeah.
you see that as being the responsibility of the core team as far as customer acquisition, distribution, et cetera, or do you see that as the responsibility of the applications themselves?
I mean, the applications are the responsibility of the core team, right? Like the teams that build on MegaETH are our responsibility.
Yeah.
Making sure that they're great, making sure that they have everything they need to win. That's our responsibility. And yeah, like that's just yeah, but making sure that you guys are good to begin with, right? Like I'm not trying to have a bunch of like mid forkers building on MegaETH. Like, get out of here.
The type of due diligence that you do before you actually start working on the project and up until the point that you commit, it's very different from like strategizing on the go and making sure that basically everything is going hand in hand to try to find this customer. So like, I mean, up until a certain point, I mean, you can do all this diligence and you can be basically like responsible for the teams that you picked. But I mean, after the horses are in the race, like it's up to it's hard for you to take responsibility for someone that basically had all the different data in front of them. You had your opinion, they had their opinion. At the end of the day, a decision was taken, and I mean, if you disagreed with the decision and then it ended up failing, and I mean, it could have been a valid opinion and a valid path, but it's very hard for basically mega ethers and any ecosystem to take responsibility for the basically the actions of the protocols along the way.
Something that I find also really fascinating, everyone tries to figure out if there is a playbook as far as like setting up an ecosystem. This is what you have to do in order to take your ecosystem from 0 to 1. I'm of the camp that there is no blueprint at all. The teams that do it the best are the ones who are the most experimental, the ones who decide to go against the grain, try something that's never been done before. So without giving too much away, what are some areas that you want to explore more to address these different facets of creating a successful ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just do our own vibe, right? It's interesting. Like, there's two proverbs, right? The first head that peeks out gets shot. So, which is like a lot of people don't want to do the experimentation. At the same time, the early bird gets the worm,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think with the way we're approaching Mega Eve is just like, let's find the smartest people we can, put them in a room together, and try and do really novel stuff.
Yeah.
And really just like from first principles. We're very crypto native. We have this opportunity to build like net new applications, and we're all laser focused on bringing users on chain. Like, I'm not here for some sort of like alignment this, alignment that. Like, just focusing on building cool things with cool teams and running cool experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like that's the North Star.
Yeah.
What do you think as the venture or?
Yeah, I mean, like as I just said, I really don't think there is a blueprint. I think the folks that are out there, and again, it's easier said than done. No one wants to break anything in fear that that ends up being the demise of the project. But those that show willingness to take that kind of risk and are not afraid to break things in a room in order to get from A to B. I mean, historically, those are the ones that typically always sort of transcend and beat out their competitors. I think, for example, as far as again, maybe in terms of um, the design of the system, it was fundamentally flawed. But I think looking back at 2021, Terra is a perfect example of an ecosystem that went about distribution in, at the time, a very novel way. And then as far as ecosystem development, they realized that sure you can hope that developers come to an ecosystem, show willingness to build there, but they realized they needed to build core primitives in-house as well, which is where you got your anchor, your mirror, etc. Then eventually you got say like the Delphi Labs guys building Astroport, Mars. You had Prism, which honestly, so that was a project that I was really excited about in the Terra ecosystem at the time. And it's funny now that you see everyone so excited about Pendle because the vision for Prism was very, very much what Pendle is today. But I thought, again, I don't know if this is a controversial take. I think Doe's strategy for laying out Terra at the time was certainly different from everyone else. And again, if UST and the design around UST and Luna wasn't inherently flawed, I think we would be living in a much different market today. And again, you can't really control those kind of things, but I would like to see teams kind of they I don't want to say pull directly from that playbook, but draw inspiration and see if there are ways in which you can actually incorporate, say, like a Terra distribution strategy into their own existing sort of ecosystems.
Yeah, I think like Solana had something somewhat similar, right? Where they worked very, very closely with the early batch of things on the Solana ecosystem.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think like you just have to be hands on.
Yeah.
You
exactly.
cannot be like hands off.
Yeah.
It's just that's how you lose.
Yeah. I mean, Sol also, I mean, it was looking back at 2022, 2023, there's always this interesting conversation that comes up where it's like, would Sol be Sol today if FTX didn't exist? We'll never know.
Yeah.
But I think FTX definitely had a major impact on Sol's distribution. getting as many people familiar with the chain as possible, maybe directly or indirectly onboarding them to the chain as possible. There are certainly negatives that came along with that, certainly after the collapse of FTX. I don't know if you guys tried using Sol in like December 22, January of 2023, but slippage was absurd, very little liquidity. But again, now that you have, there are certainly a core group of developers that decided to stick around, did a great job, or committed to building out the ecosystem, and look at where we are today. So, yeah, no, I mean, in the case of also Terra, as far as distribution, you saw them lean heavily into the real world.
The savings of grandmas, yes.
Leaning into the real world. I forget the name of the, what was the payment service that was.
The one that turned out to not be real. The one, yeah.
Yeah,
No, yeah. There was a.
You know what I'm
So
talking
yeah,
about?
Terra kept chilling the fact that they had this partnership with some Korean payment rail. Right? Or
I
like,
thought it was a wallet solution that they had. I forget the name of it. But you were able to pay like a bunch of vendors in Korea using USD.
I think the trick is like that never actually was real.
I mean, like they
Yeah.
they memed it.
They moved it
Yeah.
into.
it was like the sustainable yield.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, yeah, Duke One was truly a visionary. But I don't think he ever foresaw putting ledgers up his ass.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I hope
that's
he's doing
crazy. That's
I hope he's doing
down
well.
so bad.
To a certain point, I really agree with you, the SBF argument on Solana. I mean, when Solana was crashing all the time, and SBF was doing the magnificent work of just bidding it up infinitely. Now we know that he actually didn't have any money to bid it off on his own exchange, but he was bidding it up infinitely, making sure that the price wouldn't collapse. It would be horrible for the ecosystem if Solana came back alive again and suddenly all the loans and basically all the leverage positions needed to be liquidated, etc. It would be horrible for the ecosystem. And I mean, Sam took it like a champ. As probably he is taking it in jail. So I mean, thank you, Sam, for the keeping Solana alive, I guess.
What else has been happening, man? SBC was this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did it go?
I mean, man, SBC is cool. Like, there's also smart people, but it's just like a massive like researcher circle jerk in a lot of ways, right?
All the
Which is-
mechanism designers.
Yeah, which is really fun, but not what I'm focusing on. So we basically just I didn't spend a lot of time at SBC, just like running around the city, meeting lots of interesting people, and just getting like, a general pulse for the eco. I mean, yeah, I just think like it's so interesting. You know, the tech can be mid if the distribution is good. I just disagree fundamentally. Like, and I think like, one example is like Ethereum. Ethereum has all the distribution in the world, right? And then like we had this one moment in 2021 where like we were, you know, everyone was talking about crypto, NFTs were a thing. Maybe normies would have even liked NFTs, and then it started costing $100 to make a transaction on the chain. So, and if you just like scale that out, you can have all the distribution in the world, but if you can't actually sufficiently leverage the power of crypto, it's just not interesting. So, yeah, I
So
mean,
to pull
everyone
on that
loves
thread-
Telegram right now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I wouldn't know about that. I mean, look at Bitcoin, man. It's still top one. It's a dinosaur in terms of tech.
Yeah, but it's not meant. It's doing what it's promised. Like I
Then
don't. Think
you don't need a tech as long as it does what it's promised.
The Bitcoin is that tech, right? Bitcoin is not meant to be like what is the promise of a smart contract? It was like putting all these cool if-then statements immutable and then building stuff around that. Bitcoin didn't try to do this, and
Yeah,
so
sure, but
fulfill what it meant. But now, and I think this is the issue of crypto, is like that's why we don't have any PMF or anything outside of Bitcoin. We haven't made it yet.
yeah, it's true. But I don't think I think that technology is optional in terms of the ecosystem blueprint that we were talking about. So I actually do agree that there's no ecosystem blueprint, but I do run a very tight checklist of common denominators for what makes an ecosystem good, and I still have having good technology as optional. So basically, like there's one check on the checklist, which is you either need to have a good economic model, or let's put it like as pamponomics, or technology. You need to have one of these. you can have both. You cannot have none, but you might not have the good technology, and you can have a good economic model, and you can still have a very good ecosystem. And then, for example, another checklist is around how you do marketing. And actually, one thing is that the marketing can never be around the technology, even if technology is one of your big selling points. But if you have like this pumponomics, the marketing can be around the pumponomics. So like actually on the technical side, I really don't think that. I think there's a lot of experimentation that you can do with the mechanism designers in order to find more PMF for this ecosystem. And I do understand why, for example, like SBC has all these different conversations around these different like economic models, things that you can do, how to incentivize different actors, basically like even at the consensus level, etc. I do think that that still is very underexplored as with even as consumer apps on the blockchain. Yeah, it has been going on for longer, but there's still so much things to explore.
What do you want to see at the consumer level?
Well, I know what don't want to see, and what I don't want to see is more terrorists. So basically, if you're acquiring customers by convincing people that their savings account is better off in this non-sustainable yield product, that's definitely something that I don't think is good for adoption of blockchain. I also don't believe all this Zoomer narrative that has been going on, especially on crypto Twitter for I wouldn't say like the past months. I have no idea where it came from. I think people probably watch too much Instagram reels or the TikToks or whatever, and it got too
Like
much like.
Zoomer narrative.
Hmm?
I haven't heard about this Zoomer narrative. Tell me more.
But it's basically like that. These blockchains should become Zoomer chains. I don't think anyone knows what the specifics of this mean, but I do know that Zoomers are not known for being particularly wealthy or looking to interact with. Basically, like this type of financial primitives that usually built on the blockchain, and the only ones that ever find some type of PMF. I think if you want to have like sustainable business models, usually it needs to be a financialized application, and if you don't find basically this element of financialization, that can be. Terra had it. Just the target was not the best target, but Terra had it. It was like a financialized application that made sense for people that people have boxes in their mind. They're a customer. They're educated around like different ways that the market, but different things that they can do, different actions that they can take, and they want to put it in boxes. And Terra went straight for the savings box. I can make more money out of my savings if I put my money here. And I think we need to find like these boxes for consumer apps. And I think nobody knows like how to put a blockchain product into these boxes. You had Farcaster, which goes into like social media, the social media box. And like you can try to do this. Everything else that you will try to do, you need to educate the customer. And a lot of the business books that have been written out for the past 20 years just tell you like if you're going to try to educate the customer, expect twice as long as of a sales cycle that you would have on any other type of product.
No, so I guess just to play devil's advocate here, I think there is a world in which you can make, or there is merit to the claim that trying to appease or target like Zoomers, Gen Alpha, etc. Obviously, they may not be the ones with the money right now, just given their age, but I think we can all agree that they do dictate trends that we're seeing. They definitely dictate how we understand marketing today in 2024. I guess the question is, if you develop a product that is Gen Z targeted or Gen Z centric, there is, I could, again, you can market yourself that way, you can target that audience, but you also have to have things for that audience to be able to do um, once you actually convince them to onboard to your chain. I guess the question here is where do we see this younger demographic of non-crypto native folks who may be scrolling on TikTok, on Instagram, etc.? What do we see them actually doing on chain when the time comes? What makes sense for them? And then that will probably help inform how we approach even the build out of these quote unquote like consumer applications. What is a consumer application? Like I feel like again that's something that's turned into a meme.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's exactly the point. Like the user journey. I mean, we have zero data around like how a successful user journey for this type of customers on any blockchain ecosystem even looks like. But then, like to this point, I would say that if we're going through this route, I don't think that we'll see any meaningful adoption within this cycle, and maybe not on the next. These things take a long time to actually like find their way. And I mean, blockchain. It's very easy to get funding, it's very easy to experiment. So I mean, I think blockchain as an industry usually collects data from market, gets market feedback even quicker than other industries because you experiment more. But I still think that these type of products are so different from everything else that we see happening today, that I do think that it will take, basically it will take much longer. And I mean, especially if we want to try to have like sustainable business models and actual like revenue with these products right away. I think it will be very hard, especially if you're focusing on someone like zoomers, like you're saying, for example, they might not have money now but they will have money in 5 years. Then maybe in 5 years, if we already have a good strategy, we'll be able to take their money, but it will take a long time.
Looking back at last cycle, I guess a consumer application, I guess if you can want to call it a consumer application, that definitely resonated with folks well outside of the crypto sphere was something like an OpenSea, NFTs. I guess we can all agree that NFTs definitely went mainstream in 2020, 2021. And I think that NFTs resonate with a wide range of demographics. Those who are fascinated by just collectibles, by art.
Yeah, but it's the collectibles box.
Fair, but do you think there could be a breakthrough this cycle that has the same kind of cultural impact as say NFTs? We're seeing that with meme coins right now. We don't really have much data around who the buyer of these meme coins are, but
Actually, I would say that the buyer of these meme coins, like the largest meme coin this cycle was
Oh,
shielded by a city influencer.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry?
it was Pepe, I think. No.
Y- Uh, uh, was Pepe larger than With?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Pepe's sitting at like 29 right now in CoinGecko. I think with is
Oh,
like 50.
really?
Yeah.
Blue chip.
Yeah, but basically, like the meme coins that pumped were crypto native coins, and they pumped like 100 times more than the celeb meme coins, which were targeting basically like retail, like like normies demographic. So I do think that basically like the people who are even buying and who are basically pumping these meme coins, it's still you, me, Namik, all these different people who have their money on crypto. They get paid their salaries in crypto. They want to bet on crypto, and I think this is like the power user. Well, I wouldn't say of pump fun, but the power user of pump fun is definitely the same people that were in the trenches hunting for that gem NFT back when OpenSea was live. It doesn't look like there are that many new market participants, and I do think that like Pepe and Wif make a really big case against Mother or Andrew State shitcoins.
Yeah, I mean Pepe would be a counterpoint, right? Because Pepe has been a meme that retail knows. So it's not like dog have had. But I generally directionally agree with what you say. I think that the big breakout for this upcoming cycle will be attention to earn, right? A way for people to not have to pay money, at least directly, at least not initially, but they're able to have their attention be priced and for them to be able to earn from their attention. I think that's how we get more users on chain, and I think that's going to be the big consumer push.
So what would that look like in practice?
I can't say. It's
Only funds to earn.
it's being built, but yeah, we like to.
We had already attempts of this in the market. Like for example, that guy that brought his mom, and when the token pumped, his mom got undressed.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that did well.
Oh my god.
Bank chain. Now this
Yeah,
bank chain, this cycle, it'll have its moments in the
I
light.
mean it had its attention. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I think there are a lot of really cool things in the pipeline. As far as like consumer, crypto native consumer. Um, I know I chat with Namik quite a bit about this, but again, folks who can find like habitual human behaviors, and effectively pairing those with crypto economic incentives, I think those will be the killer consumer apps.
Yeah, I think in that regards, for example, like the Ton ecosystem is just perfectly positioned to take advantage of those.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my controversial take on Ton is I don't think that Telegram is the ideal. I don't think it's the ideal platform. Like, yes, they have all of these users. Like, yes, it's so great, and you're going to point at WeChat and say, like, wow, well, look, Telegram can become like WeChat for crypto.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think so. I don't think that WeChat is an easily replicatable model. And there's a lot of like other forces in making WeChat this one central place for everything to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really really hard hill to get on top of, right? To be able to pay for your food, get your like your groceries, do your haircuts, pay your electricity. That's a level of integration which, yeah, once you have it, insane network effects. To get there, I don't think it's going to happen with Telegram. And then I ask myself, is a messaging first product the best model for like consumer applications to sit on top of? No. For trading, great, right? Really simple. I am less bullish on like Telegram native consumer applications, even though that's what everyone's trying to build. I just
But
don't think it's medium.
what do you think? Like, I think that would depend on basically like the statistic of how much time compared to other applications does the average Telegram user spend on Telegram. So, for example, if you get that data around like, oh, no, I spent 8 hours per day on my cell phone and 6 are on Telegram. If Telegram has basically this advantage, I think it's as well positioned as any other type of application to basically take the attention economy. I think it's all about like the app that is on the most on
Yeah,
your
I mean,
phone.
I agree, but then the question is like, how does that compare to its own app, right? If we're talking, if we're like, there's a difference between being very bullish on mobile and very bullish on a plugin inside of Telegram, right? Very bullish on mobile. I just don't think that, and like PWAs is a version of that. I'm less bullish on just Telegram as that medium, not because there's anything going wrong with Telegram. They have amazing distribution. I just don't think the design and architecture of Telegram lends itself super well to having like fully encompassing applications inside of it.
So
But I could be very wrong, right?
yeah, so I guess to like push back on that, I think in the case of Telegram, most the value that's being created there again, as we've like I guess said thousands of times now at this point, like distribution, distribution,
Yeah.
distribution. You can always add additional layers on top. Same way that you have like the Coinbase wallet experience. I'm sure there is a world in which you can create that same exact user interface. You're able to interact with all these applications through a single app. You can send money directly on top. I'm pretty sure embedded wallets was or is currently either being explored or are active. I'm not entirely sure, but I think we can't just take Telegram for what it is right now, but rather how much can actually be unlocked as again more building activity takes place and sort of the second order and third order effects of those new primitives that are introduced.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But I'll just like I'll point to Facebook. Facebook did a bunch of stuff. A lot of those things were not going to be, yeah. So Facebook did a bunch of stuff. Those things ended up, it was too much for Facebook, like on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go on Facebook right now, you go into like settings, you'll see like 100 different things that they tried to do, and it's all really really janky. Instagram has threads, and they aren't even letting you use threads inside of Instagram. They're sending you to another app.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's too much. You don't want, you can't have everything in a singular application, and I think that's the issue Telegram's going to have.
Interesting.
Yeah, but like I look at Web two use cases.
I, I think that there will be like a lot of different issues that Telegram will face, but I mean finding the sweet spot. I think it's always going to be a battle. But if you already have eyes on your app, I mean you're like miles away from any other competitor. Like if you,
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah,
And like the number of people I've seen just like playing around with a lot of these Telegram apps as of late, or these Tone apps rather. I know I was going to dinner with a few folks maybe like a month or so ago, and they're standing outside of the restaurant just playing that like hamster tap to
Yeah, but
earn
that's
game.
not real consumer, my guy.
It's very
Brokies.
but it's a matter of showing again.
Yeah.
Like, people are willing to engage with stuff if it's readily accessible.
Yeah, but that's gambling. So
Everything
maybe
is
it's
gambling.
yeah, but I mean, I think there's ability to create like not super financialized things in crypto. I don't think it all has to be like put the money in with the hope of making more money. But I will make say Telegram can be a really great venue for
Yeah.
gambling apps.
I think maybe this is a
Just
hot take,
different-
but that's
yeah.
the only thing that's found product market fit
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
I
look at
get
anything, it's just like fueling addictive kind of behaviors. Like Pump.Fun or less is just a casino. That's, I guess, the only breakthrough app so far of this cycle. So it's unfortunate that after, say, 12, 13, 14 years of hard work on the builder side, the only thing we have to really show for it are like consumer apps that are fueling these really bad addictions. But yeah, until we see
PMF is
other trends
PMF.
emerge, we kind of have to just PMF is PMF, exactly. It's, people are making money along the way. Some people are getting rugged. That is life.
I also think that like basically the attention economy has more problems in terms of basically how blockchain can actually take a meaningful share in it, in the sense that I mean you just have like these huge poor law distributions around like who monetizes the content, even in the biggest attention share platforms. Like you look at OnlyFans, like how many people are actually making money of it. How you look at even the Instagram like creators, how many people are making money out of it, and like for you just to discover what's going to be exactly what's how the intention game is going to be played, and then even getting into like one of these dynamics in which it looks like that's basically just the equilibrium going into this power law distribution around who makes money, just like trying to first find a game that can be played and then watching it basically go until this equilibrium. I think it will be extremely hard, because how do you find like the data that you're actually even finding like a sustainable game that can be played? You know, like you have 10,000 users and 100 are being able to monetize the attention economy, and like how do you know that you found like something that's worth like spending resources to grow? It's super hard to make that decision.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a never-ending optimist for our industry.
We're trying something new today. It's an idea in which we try to basically not only test one's reaction time, but their knowledge of the news that are happening in real time. And so basically, this is a new concept. We call it real or fake. And basically, the guests that are on the pod look at the news. They can look at the headline, they hear the title, and then they have 3 seconds to tell us if it's basically left, fake, or right, which is the true news. We're starting it off this week, and we're going to test Amir right now, live on the podcast. No cap.
No cap. Mir, real or fake?
First new.
Crypto Clash, SBF and Do Kwon agree to charity boxing match while incarcerated. I might have to say false.
Bingo, you were correct.
Wow.
Rug pulled.
That could have been true.
Could have been true. Scottie Pippen meme coin burst into flames minutes after deployment. Real or
I
fake?
feel like I saw this on CT this past week, so I might have to say true. I saw he was trying to auction off his basketball as well, or something. I don't know.
Bingo, yeah, you're on
Ding,
Twitter.
ding, ding! Another celeb rug? Who could have guessed?
Investigation of hat. SEC launches investigation probe on WIF Vegas Sphere fundraise.
Oh wow. I don't recall coming across this. I might have to say false, even though it sounds like a true headline.
You're right.
Okay.
Ansem be on the tip of your toes.
That could be a headline. Pump it up. Meme coin platform Pump.Fun report have made more than 300 million in fees last month.
300 million fees?
Real or fake?
Just in like the last month?
And maybe this was done a week ago, so.
But you're just saying like within a month they made 300 million. Okay, false.
Our devs and our devs say it's true.
I challenge that. We have the
Wait,
check.
oh, really? Yeah, challenge that too. I think that's worth by 1-0.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to see.
I mean,
Make
yeah.
airdrops great again. Trump announces token airdrop for NFT holders.
I didn't see this. I'm gonna have to say. You know what? I wouldn't put it past him. So I'll just say true.
No.
Okay.
Are you
That's what I thought.
implying that
Rugged by Martin Shkreli once again.
Exactly.
jumping?
GCR.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen this one already. Jump deposits more than 320 million to exchanges in 10 days.
Oh yeah, true. Thanks for all those ETH selling this past week, John.
Ansem's Fallen Angels. Ansem gets robbed at casting call for his web series.
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
Why not? You don't think he's robbable?
Not that I don't think it's robbable.
He's too
No
too
comment.
good with it.
No comment.
Debt free via BTC. Trump suggests paying off U.S. national debt using Bitcoin.
Yeah, $35 trillion in debt just with one Bitcoin.
Maybe we send them a little Bitcoin.
And that is it on our
Wow.
segment.
I think that was a very good hit rate, to be honest. I think you even corrected one that we got wrong from the production. So I think like the crypto knowledge checks out.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Have a great
Awesome.
day, guys.